Can you solve all these Class 10 English poem Chapter 2 Fire and Ice questions? Convert means. Nicely done. Change is a solid answer. Ice symbolizes. Good thinking. Both A and B is the right answer. Who is the poet? Clear logic. Your choice, Robert Frost, is sound. Spectacular means. On track. Very exciting is the correct answer. Architecture means. You chose buildings, and it is correct. What is an award? You're right. A prize or recognition is the correct answer. When was IDE created? Smart move. 2020 is an accurate answer. What is a monster? Excellent choice. A large, frightening creature is the right answer. Crow is a symbol of. Great job. Bitterness is the accurate answer. The word perish means. Right choice. To die is the best answer. What fell on the poet? Correct response. Dust of snow is the most accurate answer. He had a field of dash. Excellent. Maze is a well. Reason choice. Fire is the symbol of. Well done. Both A and B is the right choice. What does ice signifies? Perfect. Hatred is the correct choice. What would also suffice? Nice selection. Destruction by ice is the correct and valid answer. Meaning of amiable is. Well reasoned. Kind-hearted and friendly is the correct choice. The name of the poem is. Valid point. Robert Frost is true. Hemlock tree symbolizes. Right again. Poison is a valid answer. When was the poem written? Strong choice. 1920 is the right answer. The word suffice means. Exactly. To be enough makes sense. What kind of tree was it? Well picked. Poisonous is the correct answer. What is ice a symbol of? Correct. Hatred is the right answer. What does literally mean? Nice work. You chose exactly and without exaggeration, and it is correct. Who is the co-owner of IDE? You got it. Your choice, Lucas Dombrowski, fits well. What does the fire signify? Solid response. The fire signifies desire is a valid choice. Who is the Wind Clan deputy? Great thinking. Deadfoot is the right choice. The poet is in a dash-eye mood. Smart pick. Gloomy is the correct choice. People can look at art here. Bravo. Reykjavik is the answer. What does tension refer to? Sharp thinking. Stress or strain is the right choice. What is the tone of the poet? Good job. Ironic works well here. Who is the author of the poem? Nice selection. Robert Frost is the correct and valid answer. Which queen adopted Cloudkit? Correct. Brindleface is the right answer. What does fire symbolize? Dash. Excellent. Desire is a well-reasoned choice. The skin colors of humans. Dash. You're right. Very is the correct answer. Which tree did the crow shake? Strong choice. Hemlock is the right answer. What is the poet's worldview? Correct response. Realistic is the most accurate answer. Choose the synonym of rapid. Good job. Fast-paced works well here. What was Lencho compared with? Perfect. Ox is the correct choice. What does satisfactory mean? Smart move. Meeting needs or expectations is an accurate answer. Who is Fireheart's apprentice? Solid response. Cinderpaw is a valid choice. Find a word which means ruin. On track. Destruction is the correct answer. What does ice symbolize here? Great thinking. It symbolizes hatred is the right choice. Who is Fireheart's best friend? Smart pick. Greystripe is the correct choice. What is Sandpaw's warrior name? You chose Sandstorm, and it is correct. What is the meaning of perish? Bravo. D is the answer. Who shook down the hemlock tree? Right again. Crow is a valid answer. What can you enjoy in Reykjavik? Well picked. Colorful and stylish architecture is the correct answer. Cucumber is dash for tired eyes. Exactly. Soothing makes sense. What is the capital of Australia? Good thinking. Canberra is the right answer. Where can't you visit in Iceland? Well done. Its inner part is the right choice. What do you understand by rude? Excellent choice. Held in regret is the right answer. What were the postmaster's traits? Well-reasoned, fat, amiable, and kind is the correct choice. In what mood was the poet earlier? Sharp thinking. Sad is the right choice. What do you understand by perish? Nicely done. Both of them is a solid answer. What does violent desire refer to? Clear logic. Your choice fire is sound. The voice telling the poem is dash. Valid point. Speaker is true. What does dust of snow represent? Nice work. You chose healing power of nature, and it is correct. Which tone best describes the poem? Great job. Serious and contemplative is the accurate answer. What's the capital city of Iceland? You got it. Your choice Reykjavik fits well. Robert Frost was a famous dash poet. Right choice. American is the best answer. What does architectural relate to? You're right. Building design is the correct answer. Name of the poet of the fire and ice. On track. Robert Frost is the correct answer. The world is full of desire and dash. Well-reasoned. Hatred is the correct choice. Which clan does Fireheart belong to? Sharp thinking. ThunderClan is the right choice. Choose the synonym of spectacular. You chose impressive, and it is correct. Where has he used personification? Well done. Both fire and ice is the right choice. What is the meaning of monotonous? Exactly. Repetitive and dull makes sense. What does the poet compare fire with? Nice work. You chose desire, and it is correct. What do the frozen pearls refer to? Right choice. Hailstones is the best answer. What does fire most likely represent? Well picked. Wanting is the correct answer. The Blue Lagoon is a freshwater lake. Correct response. False is the most accurate answer. What is the overall tone of the poem? Perfect. Pessimistic is the correct choice. What is the weather like in Reykjavik? You got it. Your choice very comfortable fits well. Was Lencho surprised to see the money? Clear logic. Your choice not at all is sound. Name the tree described in the poetry. Solid response. Hemlock is a valid choice. Iceland is Europe's most country. Smart move. Western is an accurate answer. How many stanzas are in Fire and Ice? Good job. One works well here. What is the rhyming scheme of the poem? Excellent choice. Ave Arabisvibi is the right answer. What is the speaker's tone in the poem? Smart pick. Serious and reflective is the correct choice. As per Mr. Frost, what will end one day? Strong choice. The world is the right answer. The world may end either in fire or in. Excellent. Ice is a well-reasoned choice. The crow and hemlock trees symbolize dash. Good thinking. Sorrow is the right answer. What does the ice represent in the poem? Valid point. Hatred is true. We can't dash fly, so we make airplanes. Bravo. Naturally is the answer. What is ice associated with in the poem? Correct. Hate is the right answer. What does poet thought will destroy Earth? Nicely done. Fire is a solid answer. These plants love warm atmospheres. Right again. Humid is a valid answer. In this place, there is a large waterfall. Great thinking. Gullfoss is the right choice. Who is this passage probably written for? Great job. Tourists is the accurate answer. The poem is written in which poetic form? Nice selection. Rhymed verse is the correct and valid answer. How did the dust of snow affect the poet? Correct. It changed his mood is the right answer. Do you think hatred can destroy the world? Nicely done. Yes, it can is a solid answer. Name the writer of the poetry Dust of Snow. Right again. Robert Frost is a valid answer. The speaker clearly prefers ice over fire. On track. False is the correct answer. What does the element of fire stand for? Sharp thinking. Violent desires is the right choice. Dashed Up is a symbolic poem by Robert Frost. Exactly. Fire and ice make sense. What is the rhyme scheme of fire and icy? Excellent choice. ABCB is the right answer.
Who is the poet of the poem Dust of Snow?
Nice selection. Robert Frost is the correct and valid answer. The city downtown area is lined with dash. Great thinking. Clothing stores is the right choice.
What do fire and ice symbolize in the poem?
Perfect. Hatred and indifference is the correct choice. How is the tone of the poem best described? Clear logic. Your choice, thoughtful and reflective, is sound. What is the form of government in Australia? Well picked. Federal parliamentary state is the correct answer. What, according to you, will the world end in? You're right. Both fire and ice is the correct answer. Lencho was knave and had blind faith in God. You got it. Your choice true fits well. What emotion does ice symbolize in the poem? Smart move. Roughness and hate is an accurate answer. One of Iceland's most popular attractions is. Well done. Caving is the right choice. The poem is a dash put across by the poet. Bravo. Powerful warning is the answer. In Fire and Ice, what does fire symbolize? Solid response. Passion is a valid choice. Have you read any other poem by Robert Frost? Strong choice. Yes is the right answer. What do you think ice could be a symbol of? Right choice. Hatred is the best answer. What is the typical setting for Frost's poems? Good thinking. Rural New England is the right answer. This building dash business and entertainment. Good job. Combines works well here. Which clan is known for living near the river? Excellent. River Clan is a well-reasoned choice. What kind of rhyme scheme is used in the poem? Correct response. ABCB is the most accurate answer. Tasted of desire can also be written as dash. You chose experienced passion and desires, and it is correct. How many lines are in the poem Fire and Ice? Nice work. You chose 9 and it is correct. What is the name of the leader of ThunderClan? Well reasoned. Blue Star is the correct choice. Who is the writer of the poem A Dust of Snow? Great job. Robert Frost is the accurate answer. Dash is the world's most northern capital city. Smart pick. Reykjavik is the correct choice. He was dash for the best actor in the ceremony. Valid point. Awarded is true. People dash mainly rice and beans in this farm. Great thinking. Cultivate is the right choice. What would be a better option to end the earth? Great job. Both are equally competent is the accurate answer. When something is dash, it is related to gods. Sharp thinking. Divine is the right choice. The post office employees stole Lencho's money. Correct response. False is the most accurate answer. According to the poem, fire is associated with. Right again. Desire is a valid answer. In the poem Dust of Snow, fire is a symbol of.
Excellent choice. Desire is the right answer.
Hot dash includes tea, coffee, and hot chocolate. Nice work. You chose beverage, and it is correct. According to the poem, what does fire represent? You're right. Desire and greed is the correct answer. Where is the Mid-Atlantic Fault most noticeable? Nicely done. Thingwellow Valley is a solid answer. What do some people think the world will end in? You chose fire, and it is correct. People tend to feel dash in important situations.
Well reasoned. Tension is the correct choice.
The poet's opinion is that the world will end in. Bravo. Fire is the answer. What is the structure of the poem Fire and Ice?
Well done. A single stanza is the right choice.
Robert Frost uses scientific language in the poem. Valid point. False is true. What is a characteristic of Robert Frost's poetry? Excellent. Use of everyday language is a well-reasoned choice. He becomes a building designer after studying dash. Good job. Architecture works well here. Which element has capability to destroy the world? Smart pick. Both is the correct choice. Iceland's Viking settlers mostly came from Norway.
Solid response. Not given is a valid choice.
If the world is to perish twice, the poet favors.
Nice selection. Fire is the correct and valid answer. Which word in the poem means the same as to die? Perfect. Perish is the correct choice. What is the main theme of the poem Fire and Ice? Correct. Desire and hatred is the right answer. When can you see the northern lights in night sky? Good thinking. Winter is the right answer. Some say the world will dash. Name the poetic device. Exactly. Alliteration makes sense. Where is the best place to go if you like to party? On track. Reykjavik is the correct answer. According to you, what could fire be a symbol of? Clear logic. Your choice, desire, is sound. What is the crisis that Australia is more prone to? Strong choice. Bushfire is the right answer. Which two opposing elements are central to the poem? Well picked. Fire and ice is the correct answer. What is the name of the medicine cat in ThunderClan? Right choice. Yellowfang is the best answer.
In Fire and Ice, what does the poet mean by ice?
Smart move. Hatred and indifference is an accurate answer. What does suffix mean in the context of the poem? You got it. Your choice, be enough, fits well. Which literary device is most prominent in the poem? Well done. Metaphor is the right choice. According to the poet, can hatred destroy the world? Right choice. Yes is the best answer. There are various types of banana in this banana dash. Well picked. Plantation is the correct answer. What rate will I get if I dash my dollars into euros?
You're right. Convert is the correct answer. What would suffice if the world were to perish twice? You chose ice, and it is correct. It's common to see the northern lights in the winter. Nicely done. True is a solid answer. Who were the first group of people living in Iceland? Bravo! Viking explorers is the answer. The hot springs of the Blue Lagoon are heated by dash. Good job. Volcanic activity works well here. Iceland is dash the title of Europe's city of culture. Smart pick. Awarded is the correct choice. The symbol of hatred in the poem, Fire and Ice, is dash. Correct response. Ice is the most accurate answer. Which of the two, fire or ice, has the poet experienced? Sharp thinking. Both is the right choice. The temple is now dash to the public because of COVID. Good thinking. Inaccessible is the right answer. Lencho thought of a single hope. What was that hope? Exactly. Help of God makes sense. What is the main literary device used by Robert Frost? Solid response. Symbolism is a valid choice. What are the hot springs of the Blue Lagoon heated by? Nice work. You chose volcanic activity, and it is correct. Name another poem by Robert Frost you have studied. You got it. Your choice, both 1 and 2, fits well. In the poem Fire and Ice, what does fire symbolize? Strong choice. Desire is the right answer. How did the poet feel at the end of the poem Dust of Snow? Right again. Deeply happy is a valid answer. What does the poet compare fire and ice to in the poem? Smart move. Desire and hatred is an accurate answer. How would you describe something that is spectacular? Great thinking. Very impressive is the right choice. Which of the following is a historic site in Australia? Nice selection. Port Arthur is the correct and valid answer. What is the effect of the poem's brevity on its impact? Perfect. It enhances the impact is the correct choice. The world's dash parliament was established in Iceland. Excellent choice. 1 stem is the right answer. In the poem Fire and Ice, what is fire compared with? Valid point. Desire is true. Iceland's thermal springs are heated by underground dash. Clear logic. Your choice, volcanoes, is sound. In 2000, Reykjavik was awarded Europe's City of Dash. Great job. Culture is the accurate answer. The poet Robert Frost deals with a very sublime subject. Well reasoned. End of the world is the correct choice. Fire and Ice is written in first-person point of view. On track. True is the correct answer. How would you describe something that is breathtaking? Correct. Extremely impressive is the right answer. How much money did Lencho ask for? Whom did he ask from? Excellent. 100 pesos. God is a well-reasoned choice. When something happens, naturally, it means it happens. Valid point. In a typical way is true.
ice or hatred will dash to bring an end of this world.
Well reasoned. Suffus is the correct choice. What is the main threat to ThunderClan in Fire and Ice? Good job. ShadowClan works well here. Is the poet's question answered in the poem Fire and Ice? Clear logic. Your choice no is sound. How would you describe the tone of the poem Fire and Ice? Great thinking, ominous, and contemplative is the right choice. Which of the following is a natural landmark in Australia? Nice work. You chose Uluru, and it is correct. In the Dash Valley, where the land is actually separating. Exactly. Thingvellir makes sense. Which city is known as Australia's premier sporting venue? Nicely done. Melbourne is a solid answer. Which of the following is Australia's most famous landmark? Smart pick. Sydney Opera House is the correct choice. In Fire and Ice, which emotion is associated with fire? You're right. Desire is the correct answer. What are the two elements the speaker compares in the poem? Smart move. Fire and ice is an accurate answer. The poem uses metaphor to compare fire and ice to emotions. On track. True is the correct answer. Iceland is the only volcanically active nation in the world. Perfect. False is the correct choice. Dash Collection gave Robert Frost the Pulitzer Prize in 1923. Good thinking. New Hampshire is the right answer. The Taj Mahal is one of the world's great dash achievements. Well picked. Architecture is the correct answer. The poem Fire and Ice is a dash about how the world will end. Excellent choice. Meditation is the right answer. Which character is known for being a traitor in ThunderClan? Bravo. Tigerclaw is the answer. Iceland has gas and oil fields in the center of the country. Solid response. Not given is a valid choice. What does the poet mean by "from what I've tasted of desire"? Strong choice. From my experience is the right answer. What does the repetition of some say in the poem emphasize? Excellent. Variety of opinions is a well-reasoned choice. More than 1.3 million people visit Iceland's Dash each year. Correct response. Blue Lagoon is the most accurate answer. Name the poetic device used in the line and saved some part. Right again. Alliteration is a valid answer. You need special equipment to explore an ice cave in Iceland. Sharp thinking. True is the right choice. The Northern Lights appear in Iceland during the Dash months. Great job. Winter is the accurate answer. Most of the population lives in the inner part of the island. You got it? Your choice false fits well. The group of people who can make or change law are called Dash. Right choice. Parliament is the best answer. What is the world's largest listed national park in Australia? Wow. Well done. Kakadu is the right choice. Who is the poet of the poem Dust of Snow and Fire and Ice? Correct. Robert Frost is the right answer. According to the poem, what will suffice to destroy the world? Nice selection. Both fire and ice is the correct and valid answer.
What is the overall tone of Frost's poetry often described as?
You chose conversational and reflective, and it is correct.
What is the poet's view on the effects of desire on the world?
Excellent. Causes violence is a well-reasoned choice.
In Frost's Fire and Ice, fire symbolizes what human emotion?
Correct. Desire is the right answer.
According to the poem Fire and Ice, what has to perish twice?
Smart move. World is an accurate answer.
What literary devices are prominent in the poem Fire and Icy?
Great job. Imagery, symbolism, and hyperbole is the accurate answer.
Which of the following best describes the structure of the poem?
On track. A short lyric poem is the correct answer.
What effect does desire have on the world, according to the poet?
Oh. Smart pick. Causes violence is the correct choice.
What year was his poem Pulitzer Prize winning book New Hampshire?
Well reasoned. 1923 is the correct choice.
Which literary device is used in the comparison of fire and ice?
Nice work. You chose metaphor and it is correct.
What was the effect of the fall of the dust of snow on the poet?
Correct response. It changed his mood is the most accurate answer.
According to the speaker, what emotion is destructive, like fire?
Right again. Desire is a valid answer.
According to the poet, which symbol of destruction does he favor?
Solid response. Fire is a valid choice.
Which two elements does the poet use to symbolize human emotions?
Excellent choice. Fire and ice is the right answer.
Which literary device does Frost frequently employ in his poetry? You got it? Your choice both A and B fits well.
What type of prey did Cloudkit and his friends catch in the snow? Oh.
Good job. Stowe works well here.
In paragraph F, the word inaccessible could be replaced with dash.
Well picked. Difficult to reach is the correct answer.
What is the main literary device used by the author in this poem?
Sharp thinking. Symbolism is the right choice. What does the word suffice suggest about the speaker's attitude?
Perfect. Certainty is the correct choice.
Which two emotions are symbolized by fire and ice in the poem?
Nicely done. Desire and indifference is a solid answer.
What is the overall tone of the poem towards the end of the world?
You're right. Indifferent is the correct answer.
What is the name of the main character in Warriors? Fire and Icy.
Nice selection. Fireheart is the correct and valid answer.
But if it had to perish twice, what does it mean here in the line?
Good thinking. It means the world is the right answer.
What is the name of the place where the clans gather for meetings?
Clear logic. Your choice for trees is sound.
Identify a metaphor used in the poem and explain its significance.
You chose life is a journey, and it is correct.
The beaches of Bali are a great destination for relieving your dash.
Right choice. Tension is the best answer.
Which two things will destroy the world, according to Robert Frost?
Strong choice. Hatred and desire is the right answer.
What poetic devices are employed to convey the message of the poem?
Exactly. Imagery, metaphor, alliteration, symbolism makes sense. How does the poet describe the impact of hatred and ice on mankind? Valid point. Spiritual destruction is true.
What has the poet Robert Frost tasted as per the poem Fire and Icy?
Well done. Passion, love and desire is the right choice.
The poet says, "Off a day I had rued." What is the meaning of rude?
Bravo. Held in regret is the answer.
What did Yellowfang give to Greystripe after he fell into the river?
Great thinking. Feverfew and lavender is the right choice. How does the poet feel about the end of the world in Fire and Ice? Wow. Good job. Accepting works well here. Who is the deputy of ThunderClan at the beginning of Fire and Ice? Strong choice. Tiger Claw is the right answer. Taroko Gorge on the island of Taiwan is a dash natural attraction. Solid response. Spectacular is a valid choice.
According to the poem, how do some people believe the world will end?
Smart pick. In Fire is the correct choice. Iceland's national language can be traced to the language of the dash. On track, Vikings is the correct answer. Which of the following is not one of Australia's 5 largest cities? You got it? Your choice, Adelaide, fits well. Which city is known for being the smallest of the world's continents? Great job. Sydney is the accurate answer.
What is the poet's opinion on the destructive power of hatred and ice?
Exactly. Equal impact makes sense. In the poem Fire and Ice, a symbol of lust and endless desire is dash. Well done. Fire is the right choice.
What does the poet compare to fire and ice in terms of destructiveness?
Great thinking. Hatred and indifference is the right choice. Which literary device is predominantly used in the poem Fire and Icy?
Perfect. Metaphor is the correct choice. Identify an example of alliteration in the poem and analyze its impact.
Correct. Whispering Winds is the right answer. Which literary device is used to contrast the ideas of fire and ice? Bravo. Antithesis is the answer.
In the poem Fire and Ice, what does this mean from what I have tasted?
Nice selection. From my experience is the correct and valid answer. Which does the speaker believe is most likely to lead to the world's end? Excellent. Fire is a well-reasoned choice. Which of the following is not one of the biggest industries in Australia? Smart move. Trade is an accurate answer. Valletta, Malta, was dash the title of European Capital of Culture in 2018. Excellent choice. Awarded is the right answer. According to Robert Frost, what is sufficient for the world's destruction? Well reasoned. Hatred is the correct choice.
Which element does the poet believe can cause total destruction like fire?
Sharp thinking. Desire is the right choice.
What is strong enough for destroying the world twice, as per Robert Frost?
Correct response. Ice is the most accurate answer.
The poet Robert Frost knows enough that there is enough dash in this world.
Right again. Hatred is a valid answer.
According to Robert Frost, hate born of cold reasoning makes a man dash.
You're right. Insensitive to feelings is the correct answer.
In the poem Fire and Ice, what does the word suffice most closely mean?
Right choice. To be enough is the best answer.
Name the poetic device used in the line. I hold with those who favor fire.
You chose both, and it is correct. What is the poet's preference between fire and ice for the end of the world? Valid point. Fire is true.
Tourists can visit huge rock formations on a black sand beach in this place.
Well picked. Vic is the correct answer.
Dash, the post office employees are a bunch crooks. Why did Lencho say this?
Good thinking. Lencho didn't trust them is the right answer.
The poet brings about the contrast between the ice and dash through this poem.
Nice work. You chose fire, and it is correct.
Which are the two primal emotions which the poet Robert Frost has experienced?
Clear logic. Your choice love and hate is sound.
What are the two negative creatures that Frost used as carriers of positivity?
Nicely done. Hemlock tree. Crow is a solid answer.
Which of the following best describes Robert Frost's poetic style in this poem?
You got it? Your choice simple and direct fits well.
I hold with those who favor fire, which poetic device is used in the above line.
Sharp thinking. Alliteration is the right choice.
What does the speaker favor as the end of the world, based on their experiences?
Right choice. Fire is the best answer.
Name the poetic device used in the line. Some say the world will end in fire.
Solid response. Both imagery and alliteration is a valid choice.
The poet links the two powerful natural elements to -e and dash.
Great thinking. Human and their emotionals is the right choice.
What sound device is used to emphasize the intensity of fire in the first line?
Smart move. Alliteration is an accurate answer.
There are many different dash of cloth, for example, rough, smooth, hard, or soft.
Nice selection. Textures is the correct and valid answer.
The poet Robert Frost links the two powerful natural elements fire and ice to dash.
Excellent. Human beings and emotions is a well-reasoned choice.
Was the crow already sitting on the tree when the poet happened to pass by the tree?
Right again? No is a valid answer.
If the world had to perish twice, what does the speaker believe would be sufficient?
Smart pick. Ice is the correct choice.
The poem implies that both fire and ice are equally capable of destroying the world.
You chose true, and it is correct.
What emotion does the speaker mention as a reason for the world's destruction by ice? Correct. Hate is the right answer. In Robert Frost's poem, Fire and Ice, what do fire and ice together represent?
Perfect. Destruction is the correct choice.
Which city is known for being situated within one of the world's most kissed trading cities?
Valid point. Sydney is true.
If you want to enjoy rock formations and black sand beaches, where you should head for? Excellent choice. South is the right answer. Which of the following is not one of the main components of Australia's economy system? Anne.
Good thinking. Agriculture is the right answer.
Our mental condition depends on our surroundings, and it can be changed according to it.
Well reasoned. True is the correct choice.
What poetic device is used in Some Say the World Will End in Fire? Air, some say in icy? Well done. Repetition is the right choice. What sound device is most prominent in the phrase, Some say the world will end in fire?
Well picked. Alliteration is the correct answer.
Name the poetic device used in the line. To say that for destruction ice is also great. Good job. Imagery works well here.
In the poem Fire and Icy, what does the poet suggest will lead to the end of the world?
Correct response. Fire and ice is the most accurate answer. These aren't raindrops falling from the sky, they are new coins. This is an example of... Exactly. Metaphor makes sense. What program is mentioned at the end of the session for improving English speaking skills? Bravo. History lectures is the answer. Which element does the poet seem to favor as more likely to end the world in fire and ice?
Clear logic. Your choice fire is sound.
Which literary device is used in the phrase, Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice? You're right. Repetition is the correct answer. But if it had to perish twicey, think I know enough of hate what does it, refers to in the first line. Nicely done. World is a solid answer.
The poet uses images of the crow, hemlock tree, snow in the poem. He is using the poetic technique of...
Great job. Symbolism is the accurate answer.
From what I have tasted of desire I hold with those who favor fire. What is the meaning of hold with? On track. Agree is the correct answer.
In Fire and Ice, by Robert Frost, what literary device is used to compare fire and ice to human emotions?
Nice work. You chose symbolism, and it is correct.
What does the cartoon suggest?
Strong choice. All of the above is the right answer.
How you will get all these quiz questions in PDF books format?
Correct. Contact Naran Changder on Facebook is the right answer.